Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we'll be talking about why I believe, and I strongly believe, that in January, especially the beginning and latter part of January, there will be quite a bit of cold across the United States. And with that, some pretty large snowstorms. I know this so far this winter has been extremely lackluster. There have been a few larger systems, nothing really of extreme magnitude though. There was some storm warnings in some areas, winter weather advisories, but overall, an extremely snowless winter. But that seems to be quickly on the change around, and I'll show you exactly why. So right now, and heading into the rest of this year, the next week and a half, it's going to be very warm. And what will be happening across the United States, as you can see the GFS shows here, it will be rain, and there will be a lot of warm air, potentially record-breaking highs in some areas. Notice that it's raining all the way in southern Canada, which is obscene. Areas of the United States that will be getting a lot of snow and precipitation are the west. It will just be an atmospheric river, one storm after the other. Notice Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, all those states getting just storm after storm after storm. You can see this takes us right through the end of the year. There will be some systems, maybe some small ones that bring a little bit of snow into, say, the Dakotas right there, the GFS shows, but nothing crazy. And even the systems that do occur across eastern United States, they won't have a snowy side to them. They will be mainly rain, and they will only convert to snow way across central Canada, which is extreme. And you can see that some of these anomalies are literally going to be potentially record-breaking, especially in Canada, where there will be 30s during the night and during the day. You can see upper 30s, which is, for those regions, extremely warm. So do note that while this does take us through the end of the year, we quickly see a change around. So following this system and a continuous barrage of storms from the west, once that atmospheric river ends, what we do see is this cold air spilling back south, and it does so in a major way. Now, I know that you can't really see it that clearly on this map, but for those that have it trained out, you can see that the 540 line is dipping way further south. The snow is not occurring in northern Canada or central Canada, the snow to rain transition, rain to snow transition. It's occurring across, say, Missouri, Indiana, Illinois, more normal areas. But that isn't necessarily what drives the cold air down. What does that is a potential very strong system that comes in onto the northwestern United States, and out ahead of this is already some cool air. You can see the more systems we have riding up the northeast coast, and more cold air than bringing behind them. And what we see is a jet stream causing a rather large dip across the United States, and this allows for snowstorms to occur much further south. Now, I know that this might be like, oh, this is just very far out, the models are not, maybe they're just disagreeing on this, but the thing is, I've been looking at this for the past, 2 to 3 weeks, pretty much daily, and at the beginning, all it showed, the 384 hours was a warming pattern towards Christmas, which is what we see now. But what I really based my prediction off of, or I guess my future outlook that I'm talking about now, the cold in January, is the long-range model. So notice that the European model on weathermodels.com has this thing called EPS 46 days. It goes out to 46 days, and we can see 5-day average 2-meter temperature anomalies. So pretty much at surface level, the anomalies in terms of temperature. So there were signals, pretty strong ones, for a warming in late December. That's exactly what we got. But what I'm going to show you next is you can see a quick change out into the 6th, 7th, 8th January, which is at this point already around at 300, 400 hours out, right where the GFS pretty much takes us to, and it's furthest out. So right around here is when it starts showing that cold air. And what I'm about to show you is something I haven't seen ever since I've started using weathermodels.com and this EPS 46-day system, which isn't like decades of using it. I've been using this for mainly 2 to 3 years, but in those 2 to 3 years, I've never seen something the models show cold air so consistently and so strongly so far out. So notice that around there, it doesn't just show a brief cool down and a warming back up. Look, so it intensifies that cold, and it takes us through mid-January, the 14th, 15th. Look at some of those anomalies. Those are really, really strong readings for being, 500, 600 hours out. And you might think, okay, but the latter half of January will be warmer, right? Not necessarily. You can see there might be a little bit of a decrease in that cold, some warm temperatures coming in, but that cold sticks around, and you can see we never see truly warm temperatures across much of January into February across the United States. So it seems that once this cold air locks in, it will be locked in, and we will see a crazy barrage of storms, most likely with this, and cold air, as evidence shown by this EPS. Even at Climate Prediction Center, which usually like to keep their forecasts on the bias for January, you can see they're showing equal chances, which means they're not showing warmth across these areas, which you may think, okay, but this is just showing this might be cool, might be warm. And again, I've been tracking the Climate Prediction Center, as many people, weather enthusiasts, know, and have been tracking themselves for many, many years, and they like to keep things on a warm side. Why? I don't know. But whenever they show something like this, that means it's probably going to be cooler than average. And unfortunately, I don't know why they do that, but it's just pretty frustrating. But notice that the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook, January 4th through the 17th, shows, again, astoundingly cool temperatures across a good majority of the United States, and maybe just the Southwest being warmer, and that's also even questionable. So I want to show you now the European model, because the models that we usually use for long range forecasting systems, they just recently started processing in the hours that show that warm to cold transition. As again, we were in a cold pattern early December, then we got into more of a warm pattern, and now it looks like we will be coming into more of a cold one again, and this one will be sticking around for a lot longer. So again, just like the GFS, the European shows a very warm pattern, pretty much like a zonal flow, but also with winds generally from the south-southeast because of this really strong high pressure across the northeast coast, and because of all the systems coming in from the west, it's basically just squeezes the temperatures or the airflow up into the United States. But there aren't any large systems occurring during this time. While there will be more concentrated storms and areas of rain, it's not a low pressure that you'd see during the winter. Just these meandering showers, cloudiness, dreariness that move up very far north. Again, you can see it's raining well into central Canada, which is very unusual for this time of the year across those areas. And you can see storm after storm the European shows through this upcoming week and into the weekend. And there may be a storm or two that tries to develop into a slightly more developed storm, but again, because of how warm it is, it's not even going to bring snow till it's pretty far north. Maybe Michigan there in Indiana, Ohio, according to the European, but nothing crazy, even if that does happen. But notice, because of how strong this system gets and because of the flow that stops from the west due to a really strong ridging that begins occurring across Alaska, we have a high pressure that develops in the Gulf of Alaska. This causes the jet stream to buckle, and also this storm with its massive wind field helps drive some of that cold air down. But do note that the storms that are now coming in from the west are more across way further up north, and they have a more north to southeast direction versus southwest. Or from the southwest towards the northeast, which would bring in a lot of warm air for the eastern United States. So, okay, you can see that by Friday, January 3rd, 2nd, the European already puts us in a more normal pattern. It removes some of these extreme anomalies from the rest of the United States versus what it looks like right now, something like this, right? So it's already looking more normalized by the first days of January. But as I keep playing this forward, you will see that it continues showing this cold air not only sticking around. You can see lake effect off the lakes. That is a clear sign that there's cold air riding over the warm waters of the lakes. But we have systems that, again, have a lot more snow with them, and they have a lot more cold air to work with them. So notice this is the storm that comes in, has a ton of abundant warm air and moisture still from this high pressure in the southeast. A classic setup for a very strong storm. And you can see it takes off and develops a system that actually brings snow into the central and southern United States. And behind it, pretty much a cold polar vortex. And so again, this is only the beginning of this cold air, what we see here. And sometimes we would see winters where this would be all we'd get, a little cold shot and back to a warm pattern. But again, if you look at these 46-day model outlooks, this goes out to January 8th. That's the furthest this model goes, right? And if you look at what we see for the weather model ensemble that goes out 46 days, only around this time frame where the European model ends is when they really start developing that cold air. So it seems that into the middle part of January, this cold air will continue intensifying and continue bringing in more and more cold air, which, again, with really cold air mass like this, you see big storms developing because of the baroclinic zone that develops. And when you have a stronger jet stream, the systems turn into more easily develop into cyclones versus these meandering areas of showers and rain like we see now with a very weak jet stream across our area. These storms can't really develop. These moisture can't develop into an actual system. So this is something more of a summer pattern across the United States right now as opposed to winter. And I do want to show you that some of these anomalies the European is showing, which again, probably not even the coldest air of the January, because the long-range models show that more towards mid-January. You can see some of these anomalies are pretty strong, especially considered that we'll be 20 to 30 degrees above average. We go, 15 to 20 degrees below average. That's a big change around. People are definitely going to be caught off guard by that. And you can see we have temperatures more akin of what we see during this time of the year, negatives and even single digits. So that is definitely going to be a abrupt turnaround. And all models pretty much agree on this. You can see the GFS, well, this is the most recent model one. The GFS shows in a lot of cold air spilling into the United States into the beginning part of January as well. A rapid change around from what we're seeing now with a ton of warm air. And you can see the GFS also develops a really nasty storm around that January 6th, 7th time frame that brings snow very far south, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, right through into southeastern Canada. Extremely strong low pressure system. You already know what that means. Very, very cold air behind this system spilling in. And you can see the snowfall footprint on that is obviously very significant. Obviously, I'm not here to track individual storms. What I'm showing you is, don't get caught off guard by this warm weather you're seeing now into late Christmas, because it looks like things are about to completely change around. So I could also show you the GEFS, which is an ensemble of the GFS that go out very far out as well, and it could show us 800 hours out. So you saw that the European model ensemble thinks it's going to be very cold. Now let's see what the GFS one thinks. The GFS ensemble. It shows very similar. You can see bringing in more cold air around the 5th, 6th, 7th of January, but it really starts developing at only around the 8th and 9th. And this cold is stubborn. Look, it doesn't change around. 500 hours, 600 hours out, it's still here. There will be some ridging potentially across the southwest, but leading to maybe more heat there. But, and this is even during potentially where the European models show that thaw. And right there again, you can see toward late January, we see another push of cold air. So it looks like for the next 800 hours, obviously excluding the next 200 hours with that warm air that we're dealing with right now, it looks like it's going to get very cold. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for snow as well, because not only does it show cold, but for the precipitation anomaly, it doesn't necessarily show dryness across the East Coast or Eastern United States. So this is definitely, if you have such cold air and even just average precipitation, you could definitely see quite a bit of storms. And you can see that it gets reflected there. I would say, though, that that first part of that cold into January probably is going to be more drier as opposed to the second wave. Or you can see some of that warm air or moisture creeping in back around the 18th, 19th. That's when we could see a little bit of that thaw. And sometimes during those thaws, the cold air isn't just completely gone. It's just hanging out a little further pulled back. You see a system riding up north with a lot of moisture, and that's when you get those really, really massive systems. Because if you're just locked into very, very cold air, then that keeps all the moisture very far south. But it looks as if there will be plenty of fluctuations in here, plenty of different chances for individual storms to develop and what's not. I want to look at the most recent GFS model one as it's just loading in, and yeah, you could see. So there's the pattern ending, pretty much ends with this more developed cyclone on New Year's Eve across the Midwest, brings in some of that cool air, and again you can see a lot more snow across Utah there, Nevada. Continuing to see the moisture, which they will be seeing for next week, but lesser quantities as that atmospheric river pulls apart. But do note what the GFS also tries doing here, developing some sort of a coastal system out ahead of a cooler air mass that could lead to a nor'easter as early as, the 4th, 5th. Am I saying there will be one? Probably not. I mean, this is, again, more or less model La La Land, but notice that they're showing a lot more cold, a lot more snow occurring across areas that are right now seeing 50s and 40s. And you can see that it tries developing some sort of a system here, which it has been consistently doing for the last few model runs, even though it's been, yes, very far out, around the 6th, 7th time frame. We got to watch for some sort of a system developing, especially with all that cold air available. This thing's going to be a snowy system, most likely, and with a little bit of, obviously, maybe a threat for severe weather if the storm really takes hold. But, yeah, very interesting weather pattern we're having. I guess I could show you more just in case anyone's curious, because I do pay for money for this. I know, like Tropical Tidbits, this is all accessible for free. This is all accessible for free, but this stuff is not. You'd have to pay for it. So I do want to show you some stuff here, and potentially let's go look at the members. So this is the EPS, so it's a family of European models, and you could look at the individual projections of them. So, right, so this is 15 days out. Again, this shows most of the warm pattern, but it catches that tail end or beginning of that cold pattern. So some models will be showing quite a bit of snow already. You can see across the Midwest and Northeast. And obviously this won't be occurring now, but the later part, because right now, well, it's not even cold enough to snow across potentially James Bay, which is crazy. That's where polar bears live already. And there, you can see some models show a very far southern snowstorm. Not out of the question, as you saw the GFS did show a system, developed one just a few clicks ago right here, and maybe if this one is more not as far southeast and lines up with that cold air, could produce a swath of snow there. So the different scenarios that these models show, some do favor more of a nor'easter type system. Some definitely show cold air, but just not as much. You can see not as much snow with that. That is also a scenario that's possible. We see cold air blasts, but not necessarily snow. Some do show a system across the Midwest. Do note what they're all consistent on is extremely heavy snow across the western United States, because that is occurring more in the short term. But do note that quite a bit of them are showing some sort of a system, before the 8th of January, around that 6th, 7th, 8th time frame. Quite a bit of them. Not all. You can see this one doesn't. Probably develops it further north. As you can see, southeastern Canada gets so much snow there. It gets piled on with it. But a lot of them do take it further south, like this one. This one, not necessarily. A lot of lake effect snow as well, as that cold air rides over those lakes. Here's one that takes it further south. Here's one that brings kind of a widespread swath. Here's one that definitely develops some sort of beast across the northeast. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see as these models kind of come in line or disagree or agree. Definitely a good chance. Look at that. I mean, that'd be incredible. That'd be a massive snowstorm for Virginia and whatnot. But yeah, a lot of cold signals out in the long range, and this will definitely be the start of an exciting January. Probably one that's going to be filled with action, unlike some of the previous winters where they haven't been. So you can see I'm just clicking through some of this, and they a lot of them do show these storms. And again, I think that this is just the beginning, just the very, very beginning that we're getting shown here of this cold weather pattern. And even through the 8th of January, it looks as if there's decent chances for snow. Some very far south across Georgia, Alabama, the Northeast, or yeah, into the Northeast as well. But here, I mean, you can see that this is only this third or second model I showed you that has that out of all of these. But it's a sign that there is the cold air for that to happen. It's just whether or not the phasing occurs. This would be a monster. Look at that. I mean, you have a massive snow swath of almost 1.5 feet from Tennessee, Kentucky, all the way into the Northeast, a classic system. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. It's definitely looking exciting. Oh, there's another model that shows a system very far south. So there's a few showing that. So that's interesting. There's another one that shows that. So that is definitely a sign, or a sign of cold air, but also, storms phasing together. GFS also has members, but I can't show you the whole United States just like I can with the European, which kind of sucks. I can zoom in on certain areas. I guess I'll show you the East Coast, but this is going to be very far out. It's going to be hard to see, but you can see the vague outline, right, of the U.S. there, and you can see that for the next 100 hours, there's literally no snow added. I mean, there's some gray spots there, but so little because of how warm it is. It's only after that hour 150 and especially over 200 that we start seeing some more swaths of snow develop and occur. And you could see some GFS models show a snowstorm early on already occurring across Indiana, the Midwest, but again, I think the bigger threat for that actual first system is around the 6th, 7th, and that's when you can see a lot of the GFS ensembles adding in their snowfall paths. And again, some bring it further south, some further north, but they definitely bring in more snow. So we'll have to keep an eye on this, folks, and I'll keep you guys obviously updated. And it seems as if winter is coming back.